I have used the Adobe Photoshop Lightroom suite for a long time. And there's a very good reason for that. Adobe gives me it for free. But now I'm considering moving on to something new. Stay tuned to find out more. So the reason Adobe has been giving me Photoshop and Lightroom for quite a few years now is because I'm a major contributor to their stock agency, and they give you, depending on how much you sell, either the Photoshop and Lightroom suite, or you get the full suite including Premiere Pro and stuff like that. And I'm kind of tied into it. My entire catalogue of some 100,000 images is loaded into Lightroom. It has loads of edits and lots of work done and gone into that Lightroom library. But why am I considering moving on? Well, the fact is I've been approached for a collaboration with DXO. DXO have been around for a long time, and in recent years they've been putting out some really good software. And they've asked me to take a look at some of their different apps. Now, of course, you can't simply just jump from one editing suite to another, because you have that muscle memory built into you, those years and years of knowing exactly which slider does what by what amount, where everything is in Lightroom, how to import, how to export, how to color grade, how to set the color up correctly. There are so many things that I know about Lightroom that I have absolutely no idea about how to do in DXO. However, that doesn't preclude the idea of learning. Learning in itself can be a massive creativity boost. In much the same way as in photography, when you're actually out shooting and you try a new genre, trying new software can really get the old creative juices going. And that's why I want to try the DXO suite of different apps. And stay tuned to the end, because DXO have kindly given me a 15% discount offer to viewers of this video. You'll find information in the description. So Lightroom, Adobe Photoshop is fantastic software. It is still the premier software. However, using it can make you complacent. It can make you move sliders too far, too quickly. You can edit too quickly. There's a very good rule in editing where you should actually do your edit, then step back for an hour, have a cup of tea, have a cup of coffee, and come back to it. And the number of times that you will see you've perhaps pushed the clarity too far or the magenta tint too far and it doesn't look quite right. So you always need to slow down. When you're over familiar with a software, you tend not to slow down. You'll bash your images out very quickly and then just move on without actually checking how good they are. Now, I could be tied into Lightroom because of its file management system. However, I'm not so much. There are two ways of using Lightroom. You can import everything into a Lightroom catalog, or you can reference the files in external folders. And that's what I've done from day one. And that makes it easier for me to use other external software without losing the edits that I've been using in Lightroom. Now, of course, presets and stuff like that will not transfer over to new software. So you have to kind of think about that sort of stuff. However, the DXO suite comes with two different sets of presets, if you like. You've got the Nick plugins, which are quite well known in the industry and have been around for a very long time. And you have their own film looks as well. And over the course of the next few months, I'll be looking at both of those in relation to Adobe's presets. But in general, I want to look at all the aspects of the DXO suite and compare them to Lightroom, and to see if I can run them side by side and learn a lot more about the DXO suite. And there's a real big advantage here as well, because a lot of the DXO plugins will actually work in Lightroom and in Photoshop. So you will have a certain amount of crossover, a certain amount of compatibility between the two. My plan is not to ditch Adobe Lightroom at all, completely, but I want to be able to find out whether I can learn, as an older photographer, I can learn an entirely new suite of apps easily and efficiently and create a new workflow for it. And that's going to be the challenge for the next few months. I'm going to be taking those DXO apps and trying them out to the best of my ability, trying to learn all the new technology that they have built into their apps, and seeing if I can get my images as good as I did with Lightroom. So I'm going to head back to the studio and we're going to have a little first look with some of the images that I've taken today of the Tyne Bridge. And if you see my previous video, I was using my new Tamron 20 to 40mm and testing that lens out. And I'm going to take some of the images that I shot from that particular shoot and have a first look, and see what we can get out of it. And then over the next few months, I'll be heading out, shooting my normal stuff, doing my normal shoots, doing my normal YouTube videos, but slowly moving my workflow over to the DXO products and seeing how well they work out for me. So it's time for a cup of coffee. It's a nice autumn morning here in Tyneside. I'm going to go back to the car, find a nice coffee place, and then I'm going to see you in the studio a little later on. So welcome back to the studio. As I alluded to earlier when I was down on the quayside in Newcastle, we need to be careful of where Adobe's going. They have already increased the prices of the subscription if you're paying monthly. Now, to be fair, they haven't put the price up for a very, very long time. So I think the price is still fair. However, what they have started introducing is limiting the amount of generative AI that you can actually use. If you go over a certain amount with your subscription now, you have to pay to use the generative AI. And that could be the thin edge of the wedge. So I think it's very important for photographers to keep their options open. It's not like a few years ago where it was just Lightroom and perhaps one or two others. There are now a plethora of different imaging apps that we can use, and some of them are getting pretty close to Photoshop Lightroom levels of quality. So as mentioned earlier, DXO reached out to me and asked if I would be willing to take a look at their products. And we'll be looking at their 5 main products over the next few months as part of my ongoing YouTube journey. And the main product that we will be looking at, and we'll be looking at today, is DXO PhotoLab 9. Now, we're not going to take a deep dive into it. We're just going to edit one photograph. The whole idea that I've got with this learning process is to take you on my learning process, to take you on a journey through me learning this new software and adapting to this new software, all the while still using Lightroom and Photoshop. As I mentioned earlier, many of the plugins that DXO produce will actually work in both of those as well. So the products we'll be looking at are PhotoLab, Pure Raw, which is their plugin raw developer that works in Photoshop, the Nick plugins, which many of you will be aware of, have been around for many years, their Film Looks, and Viewpoint, which is their image correction software. If you want to correct converging verticals and horizons and stuff like that, it's very useful for that. And again, that works as a plugin for Photoshop and Lightroom. As I said, today we're going to concentrate mainly on PhotoLab. Now, a lot of my images I shoot as potential HDRs, and that's been very much the same with the shots that I've taken down at Newcastle. However, we're not going to look at HDR today because I don't know how or whether PhotoLab will do HDR. I'm sure it will, but that's part of the learning process. And so today we're just going to have a look at a single image, and we're going to process that single image with some of the basic tools. We might have a look at some of their masking tools as well, but it's just going to be a basic look, see how I feel about this software and how I start adapting to this software. And don't forget, DXO have given me a 15% discount for all viewers of this video, so don't forget to go and have a look at their website. I've linked it in the description below. So without further ado, let's get into DXO PhotoLab 9 and develop this image of the Tyne Bridge. So this is PhotoLab 9, and as you can see, we've got 2 tabs up here. You've got the Photo Library and Customize. Let's start off with the photo library, and let's talk about how you get your images into PhotoLab. And the simple fact is you don't. And that's a really nice touch. And it alludes back to what I was talking about down on the quayside in Newcastle, where in Lightroom you can either import them into a catalogue or you can reference them outside of a catalogue. However, in Lightroom you still have to import them, whereas here in DXO PhotoLab 9 you don't. You simply reference them as if you're in Finder or Explorer on Windows. So if we go to the images that I took, this is the grid view of them. And you can see I can scroll through all the images as normal. I can actually rate them. You've got 5-star rating, 4-star rating, etc. You can set a color label, you can tag them, and you can copy and paste the metadata much like you can in Lightroom. But we're not going to concentrate too much on the actual interface at the moment. It's a fairly self-explanatory interface, particularly in the photo library. One thing you can do, which is quite nice, is just pull this little bit down up here so you can actually scroll through your library and see the images pop up. But I'm going to pull that back up and I'm going to find the image that I would like to edit today. As you can see, we've got the histogram over here, so I want to pick an image that's got a decent exposure, possibly a little bit to the right. This one looks pretty good. Let's have a look. Yeah, the histogram here looks very good, so I think we'll pick this image and we will take it over to customize, and that's done simply by double clicking as you would in Lightroom. And here we have a very clean interface. We've got this histogram over here. Everything is just inside the histogram. You've got your clipping tools here. If I can switch those on, you can see that there is a little bit of clipping in the shadows and a little bit of clipping in the highlights there. Nothing too much to worry about. Over here we've got the basic tools, and these are the tools that you will be familiar with from most editing software. I can change the exposure just by sliding that up and down, and then we've got the highlights, the midtones, the shadows and the blacks. Underneath we have some other DXO specific tools, Smart Lighting and Clear View Plus, and we'll look at those in later videos. We've got a whole section for contrast, contrast, micro contrast and fine contrast. I'm guessing that these are sort of equivalents of dehaze and clarity texture tools in Lightroom. Let's have a look, we'll see what we do. Yeah, I think these are very similar to the clarity texture tools. So let's not dwell too much on all these different tools. We'll have a look at these tabs as we go along, but let's get this image edited initially to how we want it to look. And I think the first thing is just to crush those blacks a little bit to give it a little bit of contrast, and we'll pull the highlights up, not the whites, but we'll pull those up as far as we can without the clipping too much. And I think I will put on the highlight clipping tool there. So I think that's probably about as far as we will go on that. And then we'll bring the midtones down a little bit and we'll bring the shadows up. And that's looking better already. I think we'll bring the shadows up a little bit more, bring a little bit more detail into the shadow areas here. And I think if we just tab the exposure down a little bit more as well. Yeah, and that's looking good. So let's play a little bit with the contrast. We'll keep an eye on that histogram up there. We're clipping a little bit to the blacks, but we're fine on the highlights. So we'll increase the contrast to give us a little bit more definition. And let's have a go at this micro contrast as well and see what that does. And you can see that sort of sharpens it up. You can see the definition. If I slide it all the way to the right, you can see the definition in the river coming up much higher there. I don't want to go too far with that just at the moment. And we'll play around with the fine contrast as well. Very similar results there in the water. Okay, so we have a few other things below. I'm not going to look in detail at these at the moment. Let's have a look at these tabs at the top, and the first one is light. So basically expanding this gives us a whole lot more control over our exposure, and here we now have the curves, which is extremely handy. So let's have a look at the curve tool. And we have a tone picker here. If I put that and I want to just bring these skies down a little bit, you can see that the tone picker has picked out that area of the sky on the curve here, and we'll pull that down. And that's bringing in the sky really nicely. It is of course making the bridge a little bit darker as well. So we'll make an S-curve out of this and we'll just bring up these shadow areas a little bit more. And that's looking pretty good. We also have a little vignetting tool down here. I do like a little bit of vignetting on my images, but I don't try to go overboard with it. Now I'm guessing this is colour, and indeed it is. So here we can change the colour temperature. Let's warm it up a touch and maybe add a little touch of magenta to it. And here we have colour grading tools, very similar to the ones that you will find in Photoshop and Lightroom. Let's see if we can increase the sort of redness of the sky. So if we pick the red channel, increase the red saturation, yeah, that works pretty well. We don't want to go too overboard. That's looking a little bit garish down there. But what we could do is actually change the luminance of the red a little bit, just make it a little bit darker, and then add that touch of saturation. Yeah, that looks good. And again, we do have an eyedropper tool here as well. So if I pick that red, we get that red area there. We also have a channel mixer down here, so we can increase, decrease the red in that particular channel, and perhaps take out the blue in those reds or increase the blue in those reds like that. And again, we have a curve here that we can use in RGB as well. So that's extremely powerful. That's decent enough for the moment using the color tools. I'm just going to go back to the basic tools and just increase the shadow area a little bit more. Bring up a little bit more detail in the areas over here. So this tool here these are the detail tools. So this is where you can increase your luminance, you can increase lens sharpness, you can increase details. We won't touch those at the moment because we haven't actually finished the image yet. This one here is focal length, so I'm guessing we can change the sort of apparent focal length, maybe possibly change the depth of field as you can with Lightroom. I will leave that one for the moment. And FX tools here, these are miniature effect, different filters, adding grain, creating vignetting, stuff like that. It's not stuff that I do on a big level, but useful to have. And again, we may look at those in a later video where we have an image that might suit it. You can also add text here, which is actually really quite handy. And over here we have the masking tools. And what do we have here? We have brushes, local adjustments, hue mask, luminosity mask, graduated. Let's have a little look at the graduated. If we pull that down, it works pretty much as you would expect. Can we pull it down a little further? Yes, we can. We'll bring it down here. Not sure at the moment how we can mask off the bridge so that doesn't get affected. But what we will do is we'll pull the exposure down a little bit on that sky. And we will increase the micro contrast to make that sky a little bit more dramatic. Yeah, that looks nice. And perhaps increase the saturation or perhaps the vibrancy of the sky. That will punch the blues in the sky a little bit more without saturating the reds. So yeah, that looks pretty nice. We'll have to work out in the future how we can mask out this bridge, or we can mask out subjects from the sky. I'm sure that can be done. We have a whole range of AI tools on this software, so it's pretty powerful stuff. What else have we got up here? Let's go back to this setting. So we have here a control line. Not sure what those are on control points. Again, we can have a look at those in detail. And this one, I believe, is the AI mask. And okay, so if we actually run our cursor over with the AI mask, it actually aligns the mask. So let's click on the water here, and we'll have a little look at what we can do with the water. Let's, for example, just reduce the micro contrast in the water, make it a little bit more blurry, and perhaps the actual contrast in the water. And again, if we reduce the intensity of the sharpness as well, that makes the water look a little bit more ethereal, as you would expect. And we can also, let's increase the temperature of the water, and we'll also increase the saturation of the water. So to finish the AI tool, we need to close out, otherwise we continue editing it. Overall, that actually looks a pretty decent image. If we click on here, that's no corrections, but with the geometry applied. And if I let go, that's quite a dramatically different image. As I say, this has been my first impression of the software. I haven't used this software before, other than a very quick look in last week's video when we used it to view these images when looking at the lens. But as a first impression, it seems a very powerful piece of software. Pretty much everything that I would expect to find in Lightroom I have found in here. The AI tools are perhaps a little different. They're going to take some getting used to. If I zoom in down here, for example, I think the AI tools have blurred a little bit beyond where I would expect them to. But I'm sure the AI tools can be trimmed back and masked out as you can in Lightroom. But a first impression is very, very good. I mean, I've spent, what, 10 minutes on this image, and we've gone from that to that in 10 minutes without any particular need for working out help and looking at videos. It's all just been an organic look at this software. My concern at the moment is it does seem quite slow to switch between images and to open images. It doesn't have a snappiness to it, and that might just be the way I have it set up. That's something I need to do a little bit more research on. I have an M2 Pro Mac Mini. It's a powerful little machine and it runs Lightroom really, really well. So I can't believe that there wouldn't be any way of speeding this up. But that's only my minor concern. Everything else is pretty straightforward so far. And I really look forward to exploring this software in detail a lot more in the future as we move on through the videos that we'll be doing, and possibly adapting it alongside Lightroom. One thing I particularly like is the fact that you don't need to import it into Lightroom. You can just literally reference it. Another thing I should also mention is that what it will do, if I open up, say, some older images here, and again, that does load quite slowly, but I suspect it does have to read all these images, much like Lightroom does. So I would imagine once it's read it and then stored it in a cache, it's pretty good. Now, these are old Fuji files, and as you can see, what's popped up here is a missing DXO module. And what that means is it will download the lens correction and camera corrections for and all images that I've taken with that particular version. And as you can see, this one is the X100S with the X100 lens, which is obviously a fixed lens. So if I click on download, it will now automatically apply that correction to all of those images. So that's a really useful thing to know, but you will have to do that for every shot that you've got in your library with different camera and lens combinations. So that's my first real look at PhotoLab 9, and I've been quite impressed with it. All the tools that I'm used to in Lightroom are pretty much there. The AI masking is going to take some getting used to. It's a different way of working than Photoshop and Lightroom, but I'm sure I'll get used to it. A lot of the tools are very, very similar, very easy to look at the histogram. In fact, the histogram is actually easier to look at. It's bigger and placed to the left of the image. So that's actually quite a nice touch. I'm a little concerned about some of the performance. It could be that I haven't quite got it set up properly, and I'll do a little bit of research into that. I'm sure that there are performance fixes that I can use. So don't forget, I've got that 15% discount for all these DXO products. The link for that is in the description below. Let me know your thoughts on this first look at DXO PhotoLab. Is it something you might be interested in? Could you see it replacing or at least running alongside your Lightroom? If you do, let me know in the comments below. And of course, if you've enjoyed this video, a like would be fantastic and a subscription would be even better. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.